Plus, where's the danger should Congress fail to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell? We'll hear from a decorated officer who says he was booted from the military because he's gay. And we'll take it behind the day's political headlines. It's all next on Face to Face.
This is Face to Face with John Ralston.
Pleasure to be here, John.
Thank you. And when we come back, we will use the occasion of the House voting to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell to get some local perspectives from a man, a highly decorated officer, who was kicked out of the Army, or the Air Force, for being gay. Back in a moment. Welcome back across Nevada to Face to Face. Today, the House of Representatives voted to repeal the policy that prevents people from being openly gay and serving in the military. It was a big vote, but the Senate's not going to take up for a little while. They will take it up before the Christmas recess, we hope. A Las Vegas attorney says the military's in trouble should the Congress fail to repeal that policy. John Cerisa was discharged from the Air Force in 1990, 3 years before Don't Ask, Don't Tell became policy. He joins us to talk about his experience and what he fears for the military. Appreciate your willingness to come on the program, sir.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's talk about your reaction first, since it is just fresh news. When you heard that the House did this, what was your reaction?
I'm very glad to see that it's finally moving forward. I'm hoping that the Senate will get a clue, just like the House did, because attaching it to the spending bills clearly wasn't going to work.
To talk about, you think that there's some very deleterious effects on the military if this is not repealed. I mean, it's been in existence now for 17 years.
And it's been a horrible policy for all 17. It affects the quality of military readiness. It affects your ability to properly gather intelligence. But more importantly, it affects the individuals who are serving. You know, there have been gay people serving in the military throughout history. And, you know, if you, even accepting the 10% figure that most people do for gay people being in the population, I think that percentage on my experience is higher in the military. But now you're talking, there's how many people serving. Let's say there's 100,000 over in Afghanistan. At least 10,000 of them are gay. You know, and those people are being crippled in a cruel and unusual way. That the government just doesn't do to anybody else.
Crippled by having to have the burden of hiding who they really are, in addition to being in a war zone.
Right. And, you know, there's not enough stress with being shot at, you know, on a hill in Afghanistan. Now you're talking about, you've got your husband, your domestic partner, your lover. They're back in the States. They're worried about you. You're worried about them. And you can't communicate and do it in the open manner that anybody else would. You have to change pronouns. You have to come up with codes. You got to do all kinds of stupid things because you don't have enough stress to deal with already.
Back in the early 90s, you were a sergeant.
Yes.
In the Air Force, and there was no policy like that.
No,
it was essentially you had to answer these questionnaires that asked these very pointed questions. And when you acknowledged that you were gay, I believe, you correct me if I'm wrong, you read your Miranda rights.
Oh yes, I was about to take a polygraph for a top secret clearance, and they asked back then 2 questions: are you homosexual or bisexual, and have you ever committed any homosexual or bisexual acts? And knowing that I was going to fail those, I decided to tell my security officer, who immediately pulled out his Miranda card. Miranda, you know, just the way they do on TV. You know, you have the right to remain silent, etc. They repossessed my military ID card. It was pretty horrendous.
Did you know that was going to happen? I mean,
no, I had no clue.
What did you think would happen when you came out?
It was honestly, it was a pretty selective assignment. I'd been groomed for that, and I was really hopeful that they were just going to let me serve. I was hopeful that they were going to say, well, just keep your mouth shut and do your job, and we won't worry about it. In my naivete, this was, you know, some time ago. It was 20 years ago now. You know, I always suspected there could be a problem, and up to being put in jail. I actually went out, and I hadn't come out to my family at this point. So I went home the week before the military found out and told my parents, just in case I was calling them from from the base jail to say, hey, I was arrested for this.
Let me ask your reaction after you're expelled from the military, essentially. You have to go back into private life, and you watch the progression of events. Mm-hmm. Bill Clinton did not want to sign that compromise. He wanted, but he did. He was a pragmatist, is what he said at the time, and signed this policy. What was your reaction in 1993 when it was passed?
It was difficult. You know, I like President Clinton, and I think he gave up a lot of political capital in trying to push an issue that, frankly, he campaigned on. He said he was going to allow gays to serve when he campaigned. So as most of the candidates for office since then. And yet it astounds me that to this day we're still arguing about this policy, despite the fact that a candidate has said, you elect me, I'm going to do this. Well, we elect him, and Now Congress says, oh, no, we can't do that. That's just ludicrous to me.
You don't blame President Obama, who promised during his campaign it was time to end this, that he hasn't gotten it done?
I'm disappointed that he hasn't gotten it done, but it's not just up to him. You know, Congress has to pass the law. They've got to do what they've got to do to repeal this, and they're just not doing it. What gets me is the just political infighting. They use this as a hot potato, and they forget that there are real people attached to this. If you look at the way these candidates go, yes, we're going to repeal. Then it's, we'll repeal when the military says we can do this and it won't harm readiness. Well, they've come out and done that now. The military service chiefs, by and large, and I'm paraphrasing, have said that the time has come, let's get rid of this anachronistic policy. We've surveyed the military members to see if this was okay. Now, that's pretty unprecedented. We don't do that. The military is, here's your orders, go carry them out. So for us to sit here and say 70% of the military, which was, I believe, the figure in the study that just came out, says that they don't mind gay people serving. All they care about is can they do their job. I mean, if you're sitting in a foxhole or you're in Afghanistan on a mountain somewhere, you don't care about the guy who's piloting the drone, you know, whether he's sleeping with a man or a woman. You care that he's going to be able to save your life.
You don't find it possible at all that it could be disruptive to the military? Because
No.
that is the main argument.
It's bogus.
Completely bogus.
It was bogus 20 years ago when I was in. I can tell you that when I came out, and I was in the military before I really accepted who I was, when I came out, I went to a fairly large gay bar in Columbia, South Carolina, and I walked in and it was all military. There were 3 military bases within about an hour and a half. And it was all military personnel. And I saw more people from my unit there than I saw at work on an average day. So saying that it's just disruptive is ridiculous.
Did you talk to people now who are in the military who are gay and having to deal with this policy?
Absolutely.
And tell me what they tell you.
You know, the problem has been, at least in my professional life as a lawyer, I've had a number of gay service members who come to me, they're in the process of getting a divorce. They've you know, come to the conclusion, by and large young kids, and they've come to the conclusion that they're gay or they're lesbian, and they are already married. They got married when they were 18, you know, they might have kids. And because their career is on the line, they can't fight the way a standard person would be able to fight in court. I can't go to the mat for these people because if I do, the wife's going to stand up and say, hey, he's gay. And there goes his career. It's out the window. And that to me is pretty fundamentally unfair. I think the best example of the way it comes out, though, is if you think about the folks who are here who have lovers who are in Afghanistan, in Iraq, your lover is killed or injured, and your spouse, the person you love the most in the world, the person you need to be able to recover, you need that emotional support, can't even get on base. They're not a family member. They're not entitled to survivor benefits, you know, if you're killed. And they can't assist you in your recovery. Because if they do, that's it, you're done. Your career is over. How you can ask somebody who's being shot at and risking their lives for our freedoms to go ahead and just punish themselves that way doesn't make any sense. And if it affected readiness, I'd be all about it. I can understand then. But these are the same arguments they were using to keep blacks from integrating with whites in the military. It's the same exact
People
arguments.
have used that argument with the civil rights movement. Mr. Cerezo, I really appreciate your willingness to be so open about your story here on the program, and we'll be watching along with you. Happy holidays to you. Thanks
Happy
for
holidays
coming
to you.
on.
Thanks.
When we come back, we're going to